Hi everybody, it's Lauren. It's great to see you guys again, and I want to do this VR from Two Spirit, Simon. So Simon, when you were doing your video about soul decks, I related to so much of what you were saying, and I had some similar experiences. You know, I would hear other people talk about their soul deck, and I would think about that, and do I have one? Also, just like you, Simon, I did buy some decks because other people spoke so highly of their soul deck. So I did buy the Arthurian Tarot, which I thought I had out here. I guess I didn't bring it out. But that Lisa from Tarot Alchemist, as everybody knows, talks about that as being her soul deck. And I really like it. It's a beautiful deck. It's quiet, and it has depth, and the people are so welcoming and friendly in that deck. So I'm enjoying working with it very much. But I don't know that it would ever be my soul deck, but I sure enjoy it. So another thing I notice with people and their soul decks, it tends to be decks that they first started with, or decks that they used for a long time. And I do have a deck like that. So for about, I guess about 10 years, pretty much the only deck I used, well, there were two. I used the Rider-Waite Smith, and I used the Alchemical Tarot, which I've talked about in the past on my channel quite a bit. And, you know, when you use it only pretty much one deck or so for so many years, you really bond with it. So I did bond with this. And maybe there was a time when I maybe would have considered it my soul deck, and I love this deck. But I don't know if it's my soul deck, because I know I've changed a lot since that time. And that time of my life is gone. You know, it's gone. And I've made a lot of changes since the time when I was working with this deck. But it is beautiful. So this might be something close to that for me. And when I had gotten this deck, I think it was pretty little known. It was fairly obscure. But now I do know that it's come into, you know, everybody's lexicon. People are aware of this deck. This would be an older version that is no longer in print. But I have 3 or so versions of this deck because I do really love this deck. And let's move on. Okay, I want to talk about some experiences with other decks that have moved my soul deeply. So one of those decks is the Hidden Realm. Now, I'm only going to talk about a few decks because, truthfully, I have so many decks that I appreciate, and you know, I keep using the word love, but you know what I mean, you know, tarot people out there. So the Hidden Realm, particularly this card, this is the Emperor. Now, I had, this happened years ago, right as I was getting this deck, a few years back. A friend of mine told me that her mother was just so very upset and depressed, and of course I said, well, why? What's wrong? And she told me that her mother's cat had run away 3 months prior. And what happened was, the cat had ran away on the 4th of July because the cat got scared of the noises from the firecrackers and things like this. And that is one of the most common days for cats and dogs to run away because of that fear. So just, you know, for people to know that. So anyway, so it was 3 months after this, and my friend is telling me this story. And, you know, she knew I did some work with animal communication. However, myself and other animal communicators do not work with lost pets, because when you're connecting with them, the voice, okay, is the same whether the animal is passed or is still living. So it's really hard to determine. But I wanted to do my best for my friend. And, you know, I had been working on it, and I was working with this deck, as I said, at the same time, and I had done a meditation with this particular card. And I went into a really deep meditation, and this bird here kind of came to me in my meditation and took me on a journey and took me to where that cat was. So the cat was still alive and was living with feral cats. And I was able to talk to the cat and tell, you know, offer the cat like courage to be able to go back home. And I won't go into all of the details. I had done a video about it a few years ago. Anyway, within a few days, the cat did make it home, and it was a wonderful reunion with the cat and her mother. So, so this deck has really assisted my soul, and I love it. But again, I don't really consider it my soul deck. Okay, so I'm going to talk. Boy, I have to say that here's another deck that I've had incredible meditations and journeys with, and that is the Vision Quest Tarot, a wonderful deck. I use it sporadically, you know, when I'm called to use it, and it's beautiful. I know many people know it and have, you know, so I won't go through the cards so much. It's a beautiful deck. Okay, so I do want to talk about another deck, and this is the Herbal Tarot. I just kind of dropped the cards everywhere. Okay, well, this is the Herbal Tarot. And look at the backing of that. I just even love the backing of this deck. Look at that. That's rosemary. So, yeah, I do really I enjoy having a connection, you know, with the plants and things like that. So I do want to tell you a little story with rosemary. And now this is a few years ago, and I was having difficulty. I was having a physical illness. Now, just my personal tendency when I have physical ailments or things like that, there is a tendency for me to have things that are really unusual. So, you know, if I go to a traditional doctor, they rarely, if ever, can really help me. I go to other healers, and what happens is I have to sort of really move through these things myself and sort of figure it out, because I get these odd things that come up. And that was the case at this time. So nothing was really working with me. And, you know, quite a time was going by, like a couple of months were going by. I still couldn't get a handle on this. And I had a meditation. Truthfully, I don't remember if it was a meditation or a dream, but something like that. And in the dream, we'll call it a dream, a wolf came to me, and the wolf handed me a sprig of something. And when I kind of woke up, I knew intuitively that it was rosemary. And I started working immediately with rosemary. And within, I don't know, just a couple of days, that issue really, it cleared up for me. And so it had such a you know, profound effect on me, and how I just enjoy the plants. And I really do see them as friends and healers. And you know, I'll just talk about a few cards. It's such a beautiful deck. So here is the Sun card, and they didn't go with the traditional sunflower. So what he has is Angelica. And it's really interesting they chose this, because this would be used for a person that's having a hard time expressing themselves, or a person that's maybe a little fearful of going out and intermingling with people and enjoying that connection. So this, you know, this would be something that would be helpful for that trouble in a way. Okay. Oh, and the Nine of Swords is Valerian, so to bring peace and quiet a mind that needs it. Now, I'm pretty sure other people have done walkthroughs of this deck, and that's really why I haven't done a review on it. I'm going to talk about one more card, and that's Basil. So, you know, I did have an incredible experience with Basil, and I just want to say that I think I'm past the point in my life where I feel like I have to apologize for my intuition or my meditations. So, you know, to some people's ear, it's going to sound strange, but it's, to me, it's, we should all be able to do these things, and we can, you know. So this is more recent. I was, you know, having a really tough time. I would say the last 4 months, you know, I talked about that in my previous video. I was going through a lot of difficulty, and I wanted to do a meditation with basil, right? And it's just something that came to me that I wanted to try. Now, I have a basil plant on my little patio. I'm on a third floor apartment, and I have a balcony, I guess is what it's called, a little balcony. So I brought the basil plant in, and I sat with her. So kind of just sitting in her energy. Now, when you're working with a plant, it's not necessarily the actual little plant in that pot, but you're working with the spirit of the plant, or the guardian of that plant or that species. But I liked having her there just to look at her and admire her beauty, and I started to sort of meditate and talk with her. At the same time, I was in a lot of pain, and I really couldn't keep up the meditation, and I started crying. I just was crying and crying. And the most amazing thing happened was I had a very strong sensation of being hugged by her. So I felt like all these leaves around me, around my torso, just so gently holding me and hugging me, like she understood my pain. And it lasted for several minutes. It wasn't just a little quick thing. And then my tears changed, and then I started crying because I just felt this connection with her and with nature and Mother Nature, understanding, that there is no separation. It's so hard to grasp that, but I think a lot of us try to understand and really feel our connection. And that was an incredible, incredible experience for me. And since then, other things have happened where I know that because of my interaction and my relationship that I'm developing with the spirit of Basil, that she's healing my spirit in a way, and other things I haven't done for a while that bring me joy started to sort of come back into my life, a lot of inspiration and beauty. So all that being said, this deck should sort of be my soul deck because I love, the plants, and I love, nature's spirit, and I really see them as deep friends and allies. So I'll put this in the mix, but it's not really my soul deck. I don't really know if I have one. Another deck, when I first started working with the Aquarian Tarot, I had such a connection, and still do. I love the artwork. There's something special about the Aquarian Tarot. Again, it's not really my soul deck, but those of you who work with it, you know its beauty. Look how interesting this is. I really like the way the window is not even attached to a church. It's up there in the sky. And the sky is not dark. This is a different Five of Pentacles. To me, anyway, it is. To many of the others. The basic meaning is still there. But there's something maybe a little more hopeful about it, almost a little heavenly about it. And it's a beautiful deck. And one that means so very much to me. Okay, so let me just, I want to talk about one other deck. Now, I had gotten this in January, and I didn't do a video on it because I feel really something very special for me personally in this deck. And sometimes what happens for me is, when I make a video and then people watch it and they have their own opinions, somehow in a very subtle way, the energy just shifts a little bit. And then I wind up having to put the deck away for a short while. And that's why I haven't done a video on this, but I promise I will. It's the Abyssal Tarot. I had wanted this deck for years, and I finally allowed myself to buy it in January. It was very expensive. What I consider this deck to be, I call this my final cut deck. Now, what do I mean by that? Okay, so this guy here, I don't know if you can see, but this guy here, it's Roger Waters, and he had written an album, I don't know, decades ago. The album is called The Final Cut. So what happened to him in his life is his father had died in World War II, and I don't think he even ever met his father. I believe that his dad might have died before he was born, but I'm not sure about that. But so when he was writing this album, it was really like him purging and lamenting the loss of his father and the harshness of and the horrors of war. But there's the title track on that album, The Final Cut, is the name of the song. I find it to be so profound, and I find that it can apply to any of all of us at any given time with any given situation. So I'm just going to tell you a couple lines in this song, and then I'll relate it to the deck. Thank you just for taking the time to listen to this. I know it's a little different, but he says, one of the things he says is, if I were to show you my dark side, would you still hold me tonight? If I open my heart to you and show you my weak side, what would you do? Okay, that in itself I think is beautiful. Later on in the song, he says, thought I ought to bear my naked feelings. Thought I ought to tear the curtain down. I held the blade with trembling hands, prepared to make it, but just then the phone rang, and I never had the nerve to make the final cut. Wow, to me that's a wow, and it speaks to me deeply about, the walls, or he said curtains that we put up. Curtains are walls of grief, of pain, or of shame, or whatever it is for each of us. And the desire of our souls to cut down that curtain in our wall, to get to know ourselves better, to really know who we are, and to really know our souls, and to connect with others in a natural way, without all this stuff in the middle. So when I worked with this deck, I call it my final cut deck because I do feel that during those times when we are trying so hard to cut down, take down the curtains, there's something so visceral in these images that I feel it will assist in that. And I will be honest that the first time I took it out of the box, I looked at it, and then when I did a reading, it moved me to tears. So this was never intended to be a tarot deck. Here's the Wheel of Fortune. The images are very unusual. These are photos that an artist, a photographer took, and she set these photos up. They were all done underwater. So they're very moody, and sometimes dark, sometimes gentle, and sometimes harsh. And I can't even explain the way this affects me. So I will do a video on it. There is a lot of nudity in this deck, and I think most of us can handle that. So I'll just show one or two more, and I really do. I thought by now I was going to try to have a better camera situation, and I'm sorry that I don't. This is the Hermit. It's just not going to happen right now. I don't have the financial situation to buy anything new right now, but I am grateful to my friend who had bought me this little mini pad here that I can make the videos. So these are the decks that speak to my soul. Is one of them my soul deck? I don't know, but they all speak to me at different times, and they speak deeply to me. And so thank you, Simon, for the opportunity to make this VR. I think your channel is wonderful, and I love so many of you. I love all of you. What am I saying? I really do, and I'm getting to know more channels through other people talking about other channels. So thank you. I appreciate you, and stay well. Bye now.